Hello there, welcome to Bryan Lomax Movie Talk and my review for Insidious 3, a film that I wasn't really sure I was even going to bother with, to be honest. I liked the first one, but it's probably not a film I'll revisit, really. I wasn't that keen on the second one. My enthusiasm wasn't, given the history of horror sequels, my enthusiasm wasn't at its peak. But I watched it and I gotta say, I loved it. As far as this franchise goes, I would say it was the best one. I think it's probably an unpopular opinion, but I think it's better than the first one. Now, this one is written by Leigh Whannell, who wrote the previous two. He's also directed it this time around. It's the first time he's directed. I feel like because of that, he's really gone all in. He's not just half-arsed it. He's thought, damn it, I'm being handed the reins here to the director's chair. Now it's all on me, so I better do a good job. And he does. So this is a prequel, but even so, spoilers for this film and for the previous two movies. But I don't know why you would watch Insidious 3 if you haven't seen the previous two. Either way, spoilers. This film basically follows the character of Elise, who we know is going to die in the previous two films. So right there, you're dealing with something that is lacking in tension. You know, as far as a concept goes, we know this character isn't really in danger because we've seen her death and it doesn't take place in this film. Even so, Whannell does a really good job here of showing how she gets to the point that where we find her at the beginning of the first film, in a way that I didn't realise we needed, and we see this other character played by Stephanie Scott. She's this girl who lost her mother. Her mother died, and her father and her don't have the best relationship now, and she's really just she wants to reach out. So she goes to see a medium to speak to her mother, but ends up bringing a whole host of other spirits instead. And that conceit is kind of set up in the introduction, and I really like it. There's a quote in the film during the sequence where I think it's Elise, in fact, says that if you call out to one of the dead, then they will all hear you. So this girl, Stephanie Scott, goes to see Elise to try and contact her mum, and she gives her this warning. And I like that they have that warning there, because I do feel like in films like this, all too often, the medium is to be trusted, and we're to believe that just because they see something, that they understand it completely. And I feel that that's a risky kind of proposition, personally, speaking in a real world sense. I personally think that there are mediums out there who do hear things, who do see things, but just because they hear and see things does not give them carte blanche for understanding them. I think if as this film shows, if there is evil spirits, then that means they can pose as non-evil spirits. So you don't know who you're talking to, you don't know what you're messing with, so the best thing to do is stay away, is essentially what this film is about. It sets up that notion, and then it deals with it throughout the rest of the film, in which this girl is having to deal with all these evil spirits that are now tormenting her as a result of her not leaving it well alone. I think I'm more hooked in to the story in this one as well, probably because there is a bit more work done on the characters. I feel like the first film and the second, particularly the second film, but those first two movies felt more like fairground rides, maybe not quite as much depth to them. It was all about the scares, it was all about taking you on that ride, and you never know where you're going to end up next. Whereas here, I feel like Whannell, now that he has complete control, maybe, he's concentrated more on character. So Elise's story is kind of juxtaposed with this girl's story, and then obviously the two have to come together, because Elise finds herself in a place where she is being haunted herself by the ghost of her husband, the memory of her husband, and something that happened, and just how she's kind of got out of the game. She's afraid to get back in the game, and she makes a choice in this film. The film is about her coming to this choice, coming to this place where, even though she knows her fate, or even though she knows that if she carries on with this work, she knows her fate. She knows that she's essentially destined to be killed by this evil spirit that is coming after her. And the only way to prevent that is to not get involved in this business anymore. Again, that feeds into the whole conceit that was set up at the beginning, that if you mess with this stuff, it doesn't always end well. And for Elise, it certainly doesn't. But she makes that choice, a sacrificial choice, really, to continue the work because it helps others. She sees how she can help other people, and that's essentially her journey in this film. So I like that journey, and I like that this character played by Scott is tied up with that. She is essentially the case that brings her to that position. Now, I've got to say, I prefer Whannell's directing style in this to Wan. I know a lot of people bang on about James Wan as the saviour of horror. They make out like, you know, he's the best horror director today and all that. And I'm just not sure it's true, personally. I think he's certainly a solid director. But a lot of the time, there's quite a bit of flash and bang and doing things with camera, which I respect and whatnot. And I think he uses that pretty well. But I'm always more of the Kubrick school, where if you can keep the camera still, or at the least just move it very, very slowly and still get a scare out of someone, I find that there's more skill in that. I find that means the material, the things that are happening on screen are speaking for themselves. They're doing the job without all the MTV razzmatazz, you know, and I feel like Whannell does that here. There's a lot of times where, you know, the things are happening to this girl, like we see this ghost, this guy with the mask on and stuff, and we have these wide shots of her in bed, and then we see him in the curtain. It's all still cameras. The camera's not moving, you know. It's just letting this stuff play out, and it's creepy. It really sends shivers down my spine. It works in a way that I just feel personally I prefer to the whole fancy camera tricks. There's also times when Whannell uses horror tropes, and yet because of the way he shoots them, because of the way he blocks them, because he understands the genre, I guess, he manages to hide them in many ways, or do something a bit different. Two examples of that I'll get into. The first one is something that I've seen in a lot of horror films and TV shows, and not necessarily even just horror, but like, you know, drama, whatever, is when somebody's about to get run over. They get hit by a bus or whatever. Prime example, Final Destination, girl gets hit by a bus. I remember seeing that film in the cinema, and even before she got hit by the bus, I was sat there in my seat going, she's about to get hit by a bus, and then there you go. And it's because of the way it's framed. It's because of the way it's blocked. You know, you've got a big wide shot. You've got the person kind of just off center in the middle of the screen. Why are we seeing them so wide certainly when they're being so kind of lively and whatnot? Well, it's because we know something's going to happen to them. It's setting them up for that big empty space that is taking up half the screen. You know, for a car or a bus to come and boom. And I sense that completely with Final Destination and elsewhere where I've seen it done. Whannell does it here. You know, we see someone get hit by a car, but I didn't see it coming, and it's because of what he's doing with the actors, how he's using them at the time, the way he frames it. He doesn't come out too wide. It feels like the mid shot that we're on, we should be on it. It feels like you know, that's how you would frame these people talking at this particular time. So it came out of the blue. And again, I just feel like that's his skill as a director, knowing just how tight to pull in, whilst also providing the room you need to make that shot work and give you the shock. The other trope that I spoke about is the crazy lady, who's not quite so crazy. You know, we get in many films, like Jeepers Creepers springs to mind, but I've seen it in quite a few movies where, particularly in the horror genre, you'll get a crazy person. Friday the 13th, you get the old man who's a bit crazy. Don't go up to the woods, don't go to the camp, you'll get killed. And like, you're not going to believe him because he's like, he looks like a nut job. It's a trope of horror where, you know, they're crazy but they're not so crazy, and we get that here where this crazy woman kind of says something to this Scott character, and yeah, she just looks crazy, but she's not really. She does actually have some kind of sight, and it would be very easy to write that character off as just that trope if Whannell didn't do something that he does later on in the film, which is humanize her. We see that this woman has a husband who loves her, who looks after her, who remembers who she was before the crazy set in. And just because of that, just the way that Whannell handles it, it humanizes this otherwise very tropey character. I feel like Whannell has a very good understanding of horror movies, and I do feel that Kubrick inspiration in more ways than one, you know, not just the still shots, but we get quite a few kind of tracking shots through hallways, which is very reminiscent of, you know, following Danny down the hallways of the Overlook Hotel. But he has the same carpets as well, so he has carpets in the hallways with these kind of hexagonal designs on them, which is, again, it's right out of The Shining. It's I would say it was a homage. Myself, I would say it was Whannell doing Kubrick, but it works, you know. It certainly worked for Kubrick, so why not? But he doesn't do it in the most obvious way, I don't think. You know, if you look at like the recent Fear Street, in which a lot of I mean again, that's a set of films that deliberately tries to ape films from those periods, so I get why they did it, but even so, there's certain blocking in that first Fear Street film that is right out of Scream, like ripped. Whereas here, Whannell pays a nod, but without, you know, you could be a fan of The Shining and completely miss it. It's not that obvious. It's not that in your face. And while I would say that Whannell does a good job with the crazy lady character, as I say, the film isn't flawless. And I think the character of Hector is pretty redundant. He's literally there to set up a few scares. And once he's done his job, we don't kind of see him much again. He's just around. Yeah, I don't really know why he's there, to be honest. I like how quickly Sean, the father of the girl, starts to believe her. Obviously he has that moment of doubt, and again, that's a trope of horror movies. You know, people see wacky things, hear wacky things, whatever. Yeah, Sean, the father, doesn't quite believe her at first, but it doesn't take him too long to start, given everything that's going on. And I like that. Yeah, I think you can drag that kind of thing out for too long, where he starts to become a little bit eye-rolling. Even the characters of Specs, who is played by Whannell, and Tucker from the first two films, you know, they're here again, and they're not as annoying. Now, I've said in my reviews for the first two, they stood out like a sore thumb to me, and when they came in, they always changed the tone of the film and put these ridiculous humour moments in it. And maybe that's just the way Wan interpreted the script. Maybe he emphasize those elements a bit more. That was his creative choice. I don't know, but certainly I feel like they're downplayed a bit more here. There's bickering They have this bickering that goes on throughout, but it never feels like, hey, wink, wink, nod, nod, we're going for the laughs. It felt a bit more toned down to me, and I appreciated that. So beyond all that, I don't really have much more to say. In many ways, it feels reasonably generic in the sense that, you know, there's already been 2 of these movies, and there's a lot more kind of supernatural horror out there. So of course there's going to be things in it that you feel like maybe you've seen before. But I feel like the success of this film is all down to the handling of it by Whannell. You know, I loved The Invisible Man. Really, really liked Upgrade. I didn't know what to expect with this, to be honest, but I can honestly say now that Whannell is 3 for 3. Yeah, so really looking forward to what this guy does next as a director. I'm going to give Insidious Chapter 3 a 3.5 out of 5. I'm this close to giving it a 4. I'm going to settle on a 3.5, same as the first one. Although, like I say, of the 2, I think I would rather watch this one again. Well, I know I would rather watch this one again. But what about you? Have you seen Insidious Chapter 3? And do you think it's rather underrated? Or are you in the Wan camp or the Whannell camp? Comment down below, let me know your thoughts, and until next time, crack in.